Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Caribbean Feedback. I am your host, Delroy Souden. I am the owner of AmpSocial.net, a social networking platform that serves as a culturally inclusive alternative for creatives to share their artistry, display the activism, and acts of social and corporate responsibility. With AmpSocial, you can have a good time doing good. Now, let me introduce to you the beautiful, the one and only Karen Forrester. Karen?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Karen Forrester. Again, repeating, I am representing Bantu Creations, which makes some gloriously beautiful African inspired, lightweight, handcrafted earrings. Um, you can find me on IG as Bantu Creations and also on Facebook as Bantu Creations.
And the man himself, Mr. Sam Archer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Archer from the online publication Muzilog.com, and I'm also the author of the book, The Hybrid Executive, great for independent artists, recording artists, and up and coming musicians and managers and booking agents and whatever you do in the business. This is the book for you. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and CD Baby and Book Baby and all that good stuff. And you can get it from me directly as well. You just go to samsdigital.net and put in the hybrid executive. And I'm happy to be here tonight because we have a really roasting conversation that folks would be really roasting over, if you've ever been roasted before.
And now the man himself, Mr. Curtis Henry, the number one frenemy.
Good evening, listeners. Good evening, one and all. My name is Curtis Henry. I am the producer and host of Caribbean Chat. You can find us on YouTube. Our aim at Caribbean Chat is to showcase Caribbean people of excellence. And that is what you do, what we do. Back to you, Delroy.
Awesome. Well, this evening's topic is corporal punishment and how it affects us growing up as children. And, even today's generation is affected by that, I'm sure. And we're going to be discussing that topic this evening. We also have a special guest coming in. Curtis, can you tell us more about our special guest who will be joining us?
Well, as Delroy said, tonight we'll be discussing corporal punishment, its origin, its relevance in today's society, and the severe impact it has had on us as people growing up in the Caribbean. Joining us tonight will be none other than our, if I'm allowed to call, our resident doctor, Dr. Judith Barnes, to discuss the psychological effects corporal punishment has had and is continuing to have on children within the home. As usual, we welcome your input, the listening audience. So I invite you to call in and ask your questions, share your stories, and hopefully together we can shed some light and come up with some alternatives or solutions to whatever negative backlash its presence or absence has had in society. But before I offer my opinion on this, allow me to define what corporal punishment means. Some people think it's only the sense in the home, but it's what it means in its literal sense. The dictionary defines corporal punishment as physical punishment, such as caning or flogging. There's also punishment under the law that includes imprisonment, and even death. So, how did corporal punishment within the home affect you, gentlemen and lady? Begin with Karen, please. You seem to be a very quiet, reserved child, and I would like to believe that it's because you're well behaved, or is it because you got so much of it?
Beat me down, man. They beat me down, oh God.
Beat her down.
No. Before I get started on your, I have not forgotten your question. I just got a link from a friend saying that he has difficulty getting in. I just want to repeat the number for anyone trying to call in or trying to get in. 1-973-536-2613. That's 1-973-536-2613. Now, to address your question, I had an interesting 10 years as my foundation in Jamaica. And literally, I felt as if my guardian, who was about 10 years my senior, female, that I felt as if she beat me almost every other day. That's how it felt. Mm-hmm. I'm sure from a child's perspective, that's probably, looking back, it's probably not accurate, but it felt that way. I literally have a story about her as a teacher going to teach. That's probably 20 miles from where we live, coming back home with a 1.5 foot length tire material that was specifically for future beatings for me. That's some sadistic stuff. And I've never forgotten it. I call it a bust me. In Jamaica, bust me mean like beat me down, that type of thing. And I've never forgotten it. And it's been decades since I've been out of that system. For you to actually plan something out for future beatings is something that I can't wrap my head around. To this day, I can't beat a child with a belt as a result. I can't use a tool to beat a child. Because I've had my share and several generations' share of beatings. Sounds pleasant?
I have had my share, which unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, to this day, I'm resentful of that family member. Growing up, I was raised between two homes. My grandmother, she would more scream at me than anything else. She wouldn't really beat me because she couldn't run fast enough to catch me. But but when I was at my aunt's home, I have this one male cousin who I used to be his. I don't want to say punching bag. I almost say it's beating bag. And it used to be so frequent. And one day I just turned the tides on him. And that was the last time. But it was so severe at times where I had to run away from home. I used to run away from home and go to my uncle's place. And it was intense. It really was intense. And one of the reasons why I resent him to this day is that because I wasn't raised with my mom was never around. I, expressed to her that this particular cousin used to just make me a punching bag. And like she always does, she take his side over my word. And the resentment came. The resentment kicked in to this day. I'm not going to lie about it. To this day, I kind of resent them both.
Okay. Not to cut you in any shape or form. We all agreed that would get our specialist in by a certain time, and that time is long past. So would you like to introduce our resident specialist, as you coined her?
Yes, we need to bring in our resident doctor.
Who would like to introduce her?
Curtis?
Please, Sam, give us your little story, and let's keep the format, and then she'll come in. I know why.
Well, I got so much licks. I don't have any real emotional attachment to Ella spanking because it was just a way of life. Licks in the morning, licks at lunchtime,
in the evening,
licks in the evening.
I'm done. We just started the show now.
Looks like prayers, right? It was like prayer.
Felt like a daily event, right?
It
Oh
was
gosh.
mash up licks, brethren. Just licks. No,
Well,
Oh my
for
seriously.
God.
me,
I had a teacher in in standard. I had him in standard 4, between somewhere around there. And this man would beat you for anything in school. He will literally like mash you up with licks. And his anything, his whip, his belt. In fact, the belt used to be soaking in Old Oak in the principal office. And this is Adventist school, with Old Oak. They're not supposed to having any alcohol beverages on the compound,
I know.
but they're soaking it in Old Oak. That
Here's
was
the
some
thing.
wicked people.
Sam,
But
you seem like
funny
such a
enough, it
sorry.
to us it was a way of life, and we just understood that you went home and you didn't tell your parents you get licks in it, because
Because you'd get another one.
and say, well, the teacher, it was just real rough still, because the parent could be like, oh, well, yeah, let me find out what teacher handle the situation with. And, I guess as the night go, I may probably run into something that, this particular spanking did this or it did that or what have you. But when I look back at it, after a while, it really lost its meaning, because it was used so much that it became a rites of passage, so to speak. It was like, oh, all right, let me go jump in the beach kind of thing. That's what it became. It didn't have its effect, like what the purpose was for. To say, okay, you do this thing here. We don't want you to do this thing again. Here's a spanking.
So in other words, you were just getting spanking for no reason at all.
At some point you just, we had some really tall fellas in the higher, like in standard 5 and so on, and these guys were really big guys. So they would go and do their trouble, come back to the school, and the poor little teacher, she shot all the way down here, go swing the belt and hit them must about a good little 10, and they go just take the little thing and let the teacher tire it out herself. And they go say, teacher, you good? All right, good. We good? All right, good. And then they go in the line.
So Sam,
Yes,
most of your experience was in school. How was it at home? Because all my experiences were at home. I've never been beaten in school.
At home, my parents had more of a method to the madness. So it wasn't about, they were more into, their licks was worse, because they wanted to preach while they spanking you.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh.
So they'll sit down, I need to talk to you. And they come and they sit down. Well, last week, I did tell you about this thing, and you went so and what, and we go there. It's a whole conversation. And either you might see the belt on the table, or you might see it, around, and it's like,
so you start crying even before the first lick.
Well, you brethren, you can't even say anything, because
can't even twitch.
because you're in the middle. It's like, if you say something, you gain licks. If you stay quiet, you gain licks. So you have to kind of be a little bit fluid. If you start crying, you gain licks too. Because when you start crying, it's like, nah, don't cry yet, brethren. We ain't ready to put nothing on you yet.
I was raised by my grandmother. I was raised by my grandmother. Now, even though this woman was only like 5'2", she was a giant of a woman. Everyone was afraid of her. Let me tell you all something. In Trinidad, we call it pigeon peas. Sam, you know that pigeon peas?
Yeah, I know pigeon peas.
In Jamaica, you call it gongo peas.
Correct.
After the tree bears and you pick all the thing, and if the tree dies, you know the size of that tree. I got hit with a whole pigeon peas tree already. Everything from here down to my toes. And this happened on like 2 occasions. Now, this is just one story I want to tell. One time when I was about 6 years old, just went up to Napuna to live with my grandmother, and she went up in the hills to the market, to the garden where she planted her foods and whatever. And it was raining, so I wanted to urinate. I came to the door and I stood there, and no, you're not supposed to do anything by the door. So I wasn't looking this way. And here she came from the garden with a dried up tree and just decided to hit. Whap!
Wow.
6 years old. That tree caught me everywhere from here, like I said, down to the tip of my toes. Now I'm going to skip what it hit in between. Right?
It was a whole tree?
The whole tree.
So she blessed you good then.
Then she now had to, it swell up. Then she now had to rub soft candle on it and wrap it up with Wonder the World leaf, or Tree of Life, as you all call it, for it to go to sleep the night for it to go down. Now imagine this is happening to a 6-year-old.
Wow.
Another time at 9 years old, my brother and I hope he calls in tonight. We were inside discussing. I was about 9, and he's telling me, we would talk about where babies come from. And he said, oh, babies come from the food that you eat, all the dasheen and stuff. It goes into your belly and it makes a baby. And I'm saying, no, that don't make no sense. How come men don't get pregnant? He said, I'm telling you, that's what it is. Go ask Ma. I walk outside and I say, Ma, where babies come from? What? The whole tree.
Just like that.
And I had to go back inside. And he now looking at me and laughing because I went outside and asked the question, where babies come from. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy to treat children, especially innocent, developing minds.
Yep.
I would like to hear, because I can tell you, growing up with my grandmother now, she might have been a loving woman because she raised us, her grandchildren, after raising her own children.
Mm-hmm.
But she had now to raise after raising her own, to raise the grandchildren. So she had to have love in her heart. But I sincerely cannot remember one time my grandmother hugging me or giving me a kiss on my cheek, raising me. So understand, it was almost like a prison that I was in growing up. You couldn't speak, you couldn't answer back, you didn't have an opinion on anything. Bring in the doctor first, please, because I know she's listening, but bring her in, because I'd like to interject her into this conversation at this point in time. And Dr. Judith, welcome to the program. Could you please tell us, is corporal punishment an effective means of discipline?
First of all, I want to ask you, did any of that beating help you, and did you find out where babies come from? Because I don't think the beating helped you. You must have found out where babies come from.
Oh gosh.
Eventually I did.
Oh, okay.
And the first beating that I got with everything, I think that did some justice for me.
I'm sure it did.
So let's keep it going.
Listen, let's start off being very, very, very basic. The Bible says we are all born in sin and shitting in iniquity. There are no good babies. Okay. One of the things that they tell you that you don't have to teach a child to lie. We're born knowing how to lie. We're born knowing how to do bad things. Parents, you must remember, parents were once children, and their parents did similar things to them that they're doing to us, that they did to us. So a lot of what parents do in terms of corporal punishment is just following generational practices. That's what they did, so we do it. We are not a people, especially us people from the Caribbean and Black folks, we're not a people of great discussions. We're not going to say, we're going to put you on timeout. We're not good at it.
We got knocked out.
Well, you get knocked out. We're hands-on people, if you understand what I mean. We're very hands-on. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that I think what Sam said, that I made a note, that what he said, something he said there that got me. Oh, he said it lost its meaning. It lost its effect. After a while, this physical beating does very little. It irritates, and some kids get irritated. Some kids like, all right, get it over with me. I know you're gonna beat me, just beat me and done. I know you're gone. I'm tired of this.
That's true.
That's how some people look at it. When you get beatings from adults, like say parent figures, the problem is that in those days you don't have much talk. You can't say much of anything. I mean, if you do, you might get a bus mouth and along with everything else. So but the origin of it, I would say for us is that as Black people, that's how we solve everything with our children. We're gonna beat you, and we're gonna beat it into you. Whatever it is that they're gonna beat into you,
or beat it out,
or beat it out. Exactly, true. But the thing is that the problem is that most of them are just merely they're mimicking what happened to them. So there's no great mystery to it. We do what we saw our parents do.
That's true. I believe that.
So go ahead. You had something, Curtis?
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh,
Since you allowed me back in, I agree with what you said because I am guilty of this.
Right.
I have 7 children, as most of you all know, but right now, speaking about my first 2 boys, they were, I remember clearly, it was a Sunday. They were playing all Saturday, playing all Sunday, and I said, okay, now time to quiet down. I need for you all to go read something. So I had a newspaper. I put it in 3 different parts, the 2 boys and the big girl, and I said, read one story and then tell me about it in about 15 minutes. And then I came back and the first guy, Jamal, he was able to tell me about what he read. Onisha was able to tell me about what she read. And then Salim, he was there and he refused to say anything. And I decided, okay, it's punishment time. Drop your pants. This is what my grandmother did to us.
Right.
Drop your pants. And I took out the belt and I started beating him.
Right.
Now, this little boy stood there and was just looking at me like, what are you doing? And I beat him and he wasn't crying. He was just looking at me. And
let me stop you there. Let me ask you, what do you think the reason parents beat their children? What do you think is the primary reason?
I cannot answer for all parents. I can tell you why I did it.
Okay, but in general, there's a general tenor. There's a reason. There's one general thing why most people will resort to any kind of physical punishment.
I'm gonna say
the words are not working. The words are not working.
I am going to say, Doctor, I'm going to say is just to show the child who is in charge.
Okay. And another word for that is control.
Right.
We want to show that we control things. We run things. And you do it my way or you get a whooping. I say it's not just because of what was done before. Because, listen, we can have parents that whoop the crap out of us when we're children and never hit our children. So something happens along the line because of personality. Something else that Delroy said earlier that really got me is when this young fellow would beat him. It seemed to me that the young fellow kind of enjoyed it to some degree. And that was about power. That was about control. Somehow he thought there was something in there. Because remember something, even in parents and children, there are some children that a parent would never hit. There's something in that child that says, I ain't putting up with it. It happens. And there are some children who the parent looks at them is like, they know right away, I can handle that one. I can whoop that one. And sometimes the one that they're really irritated that when they whoop that weak, what they consider the weaker one, is the stronger one. They're irritated at the stronger one, so they give an extra dose to the weaker one. So
but
remember
doctor,
that. Yes.
But doctor, it stopped after I turned the table on him and kicked him.
I was going to get to that.
That's when it stopped.
The thing is that with him, you could do that because he was a little bit older than you, right?
He was a lot older than me.
A lot older. But he was still in your age range to some degree.
Yeah.
It is unlikely you would have ever done that to your parents or your grandparents.
No, I wouldn't have.
So it changed the dynamics. Once you spoke up or you fought back, you said, okay, well, I can't take the chance I used to take with him. Something has changed here. So you changed the dynamics of the relationship when you said enough. But it also happens with parents and children. There are some, and I know it personally, there are some children who will say, you know what, I don't want to disrespect you, but I'm not taking this anymore. This is the last deal hit me.
But where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line between discipline and abuse?
Well, again, it has to do with your culture. It has to do with your training, up to your upbringing. But it also has to do with what you think about the world. Remember, a lot of what we do is what our thoughts are about. So if you think that force makes or might makes right, then you're going to continue it, even if you don't see any results out of it. If you're thinking, okay, this is how I think as a parent. Make it simple. My parents used to. I didn't get a lot of beatings. I never caused no ruckus. I was very quiet. My brothers did, because they were always into something, like boys usually are. But I have to look at my childhood and start saying, is this the way I have to raise my child? So it takes reflection, it takes introspection, it takes looking at yourself and saying, does this really work? Is it making a change? Is it making a difference? So it's not just to say anymore, we're going to do what our parents did. Because the times that we're living in, one of the reasons that you have to start looking at yourself is because of places like DFACS. Because if you hit your child these days for the last 30, 40 years, you put your hand on a child, they'll call DFACS on you and they'll lock you up.
Right.
So especially in this country. So when a lot of us come from the islands, we come here, we have to really look at ourselves, because the system will make you look at yourself differently.
But Dr. Judith, there are studies that find that children who are spanked are more likely to be hitting other people because they tend to model aggressive behavior.
They model what they know.
And, they also say that they exhibit antisocial behavior, lower intellectual achievement, and mental
self-esteem.
I think that was me. Yeah, that was me. I was very antisocial, very closed in. Right. I can honestly say I was never a bad child. Right. I was never a bad child. I just happened to be somebody's punching.
Were you a small child physically? Were you small?
I was always physically small.
Okay, and this guy was bigger than you?
He was taller than me. He was bigger than me. Yes.
Okay, so he figured he could use you as a whipping post. I remember, when people want to do stuff like that, it's usually because they lack something. Something is lacking.
I honestly feel that's why he did what he did.
But what my concern is, what you said, is that you still have not gotten over it.
No, I have not. I honestly haven't.
That concerns me, because at some point it will also influence your presence if you're not in your present situations, if you're not careful. Because the way our minds work, you might not recognize that it's influencing you, but it does. Trust issues, whatever. There are different ways that it will impact you. So,
to be honest with you, Doc, I've always had trust issues, more so with family than friends.
Okay.
I have always been closer to friends than I have been with family, and I mean family across the board. I've always been, because they've treated me better. It's because of my friends' motivation why I was able to raise up out of my depression and went to school. Achieve something.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 siblings. My younger brother, who I was raised with, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But the only sibling that I'm very close with is my sister. We aren't in the same area. We've lived together briefly, but my sister lives in Minnesota. I'm in New Jersey. My mom is back in Jamaica. I have a brother in the same state that I am in, but I just don't deal with him. Period.
Okay.
Now, question to you, Delroy. Do you feel that you've alienated them, because you didn't feel protected by anyone in the family?
I was never protected by any member of my immediate family, to be honest with you. I've always grown up feeling like an outcast. And I think to a great extent is the reason why I'm so driven now. Not necessarily because I want to prove anything to anybody, because I don't care about that. I just want to do things that I'm passionate about. If I become successful at them, well and good, But I've always been an introvert. I'm talking now, but I wasn't always like this. And there are situations that happen in my life along the way that really caused me to be very introverted.
Do you have children?
No, I have no children.
Okay, because I was trying to see if you transferred some of that stuff to your kids.
Oh no, no. If I ever have children, trust me, they would not be raised the way I was raised. I know that for a fact.
Yes.
Now, West Africa. Sorry.
Yeah, in terms of these beatings. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Karen.
West Africans use corporal punishment as traditional ways to rear their children.
Right.
Now, the colonizers for the different Caribbean islands used it for discipline and control. Why do you think, as a medical professional, that we have maintained the colonizers' mannerisms through generations and can't unlearn any of it?
Well, partly I think the reason why we continue, because some of it works and some of it is also needed. Some, okay, not the excessive amount. Like Samuel said, it sounded like he had it breakfast time, lunchtime, evening time, bedtime. So he had it in the morning, evening, and nighttime. So he was set. He knew what to expect. And it sounds like he kind of just went along with it and said, hey, this is the way it is. Let's see if I can live through it and not die in the process. Right. But I think part of it is necessary in all human beings. I think all human beings need a certain amount of physical discipline as a child. As a child. Now, as a child, when a child is growing up, you tell them, now, why do you have to tell a child not to do something? Because the child is doing it, right? And after you've told them not to do it, they continue to do it. Why is that? Why does a child continue to do something that they're told not to do?
I guess because they want to test
nature.
Human nature, and they like to test you sometimes.
But we have to test you. We have adults who behave the same way.
Well, I was going to get to that. We have wives who behave the same way.
Listen.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Let's get Mark into the conversation. Mark,
Hi, Mark.
What is your Mark's opinion in this?
My life has been a little different. I had two parents who were physicians. One specialized in infectious diseases. The other was a psychiatrist.
Oh, wow.
My father, my God, I'd pray for him to beat me, man, because he started from Genesis, and by the time Revelation, and then he would say, because ultimately he was a military man, put your hands up. That means I was going to catch some good licks, because he actually wanted to fight. Now my mother, oh God, whatever was available. She was not, and I would get so vexed because I would see her sometimes with her young patients. Well, how do you feel about this? Whatsoever. But wait, hold on. And that was the end of the conversation.
Oh gosh.
The worst part growing up, especially when it came to Brooklyn, was that I was between my mother's family and my father's family. My mother had 17 sisters and 3 brothers. Okay? All right. My father had 3 sisters. I had 81 cousins in a 10-block area between Gates Avenue and Howard Avenue in Brooklyn.
Wow.
You couldn't get away with nothing. Nothing. You did something wrong, you're up on Fulton Street, you do something wrong, by the time you get home, you're whipped 15 times. And little Guyanese kids are snitches. Wow. Snitch. Oh, you see what Mark did? He was over there, so-and-so house. And each and every one of my aunts, publicly, you're 8 or 9 years old, right in the street, right there, Ralph Avenue, with the belt. So you run, you get to the next block, you get licks again.
Every block you go, you get licks.
Every single block. And then finally you get in the house and my mother's standing right there. And I just lower my head and say, all right, what I gotta catch? Yeah. What I gotta catch, you know?
But you know something though? Not to cut you, Mark. What you're saying actually created a community to some degree, because people knew they were accountable to the teacher. They knew they were accountable to the shopkeeper. They knew they were accountable to their cousins. So in a way, what happened is that children did less mischief, especially illegal stuff, because they knew they were accountable to so many people. It's better you have to run away from town because everybody know you in town. So I think even at that time, it was a sense of accountability that we felt. And to go back to what Karen was asking earlier, the reality is that we need, even the Bible says that if you don't chastise, you don't love. So there's a certain amount of physical chastisement that's needed, especially for children. When it becomes overbearing and non-productive, then it has to stop. The problem is, who tells a West Indian man that? Who tells them you're beating them too much? Who says you have to stop now? Now, like I said, legally, when you come to America, you're going to stop or you're going to go to jail.
Right.
But back home, I don't know what's happening in the islands as much as I used to. Like in Jamaica, I don't know. But I do know that it takes a mind shift to change that attitude, because some of it is not necessary to the degree. I mean, you're going to break somebody's bones in discipline. That's not acceptable. That's not healthy. And also, we damage people's psyche. And that's the other part, is that a lot of young people, their psyche is damaged with some of this.
Very funny that you said. In Guyana, I very rarely got licked. You know, you run out, you know, go back down, go in the forest. They don't bother you. You come back, you do something wrong. You got chastised. You didn't get beat. What I found in New York is that my parents, my aunts, my uncles were trying to teach me something to keep me safe.
Right, that's it, because their environment changed.
Right. The first good lick I got that I can remember, my parents used to tell me, when you go to the store, make sure you take the receipt and make them put it in a bag.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So here I was sent to the store. I went, I got the loaf of bread and some other items. I came out with them in my hand. I had no receipt. I run it down the street. My father stopped me. I didn't even get halfway home, and just licked me right there. I mean, lick me down. He didn't care if I drop all the groceries in the street.
Oh, Lord.
Right there.
And that was his fear. That was fear. He felt fear for you.
He was saying, you know, a boy gets shot in the back for doing just that stupid.
Right.
I'm going in the house, you know.
So one of the reasons why they discipline you more abroad is the very fact that you're abroad.
Yeah.
It's new surroundings, new rules, and they have so little control. They freak out because things like that. A young black boy running out of a store, especially if it's a white man's store or a Chinaman store, you're running out with stuff in your hand. It means you stole it. And that's why they say keep your receipt, so you can prove that you bought it. So part of the answer to that, Karen, is that I believe that what happens to us is that when we travel, we become more afraid. The surroundings are different. And so we have to be hyper vigilant, or we feel we have to be hyper vigilant, especially in America, for black children and black boys in particular. And I think when you're home and, like you say, you go to the forest or the woods or whatever, they know that. They know the area. They know the people there. This is a difficult place to come to with a family.
But
and I am start over.
Hear me on this. I am a firm believer that I don't care which country I'm in. 5 lashes with a belt beats 5 years in prison any day.
I agree, but you know something, Curtis? Let me tell you something.
Regardless of what the law says, I am going to discipline my children the way I see.
I agree with you. Listen to what I'm saying.
The line between discipline and abuse. I never discipline when I'm angry. I discipline.
Okay, that's what I'm going to say to you. You have to be careful about why you're whipping in the first place. Okay, the motive for whipping, and if I'm whipping a child, you got to find out why you're doing it. And how does that happen? In the moment you take up the belt or whatever, and hopefully, let's say a belt. It is your responsibility to ask yourself, Curtis, what are you really trying to accomplish here? Because I'm big on self-awareness. I'm big on self-accountability. I am big on people checking themselves and saying, why am I? I have a 24-year-old son. He has gotten whipped very few times. One of the reasons is the old thing of the look, it still worked.
Oh, yep.
So he would just look at me and know there's no point to it. I heard him tell a child one day, my mother is best you don't mess with her. I don't cuss bad word. I didn't beat him that much. But I tell you one thing and this is something that is key to what you're asking. It just hit me. Make sure that whatever you promise your child to do it. Because they watch us and they try to find out how serious we are in what we're saying. So let me tell you one of the things that happened with my son. He would always be late waking up to go to church. So one of the things that I'm very careful about, whether it's adults or children, I'm very careful about making a promise to do something, especially if it's negative. I must plan to follow through, because that's what they really respect, is follow through. And I said to him, the next Sunday that you wake up late for church, I'm going to pour water on you. Well, he did it another Sunday. I had to pour the water on him. I had no choice, because he has to understand that when I say something, I mean it.
That's true.
And let me tell you something. That when the parents say it hurt me more, than I didn't really want to do it. But you know what? I have to keep my word. What it has done, he's an imperfect person. He's got an imperfect mother. But we have a perfect God. So guess what happened? He don't take many chances with me, even now at 24 years old.
Because he knows you're going to do what you say.
He knows I'm going to do what I say. So you can beat somebody night and day. If you say to them, I'm going to whoop you now, and tomorrow, no ice cream. And then tomorrow come, all right, take a look at ice cream. You lost the battle.
Yep.
You must follow through with what you promised to do.
I agree.
And it also teaches them how to hold other people accountable.
Let me bring you in, Sam. The way I put it, I said, listen, I'm not here to be popular with you. I'm here to raise you to an adult age where you can go out and survive in this world. So I'm not running a popularity contest with my children. You can love me in the morning anyway. But Sam, I want you to speak on that shaming versus imprisonment. Speak a little bit on that topic for me.
Okay, so before I jump on that, I wanted to interject because a question was asked what was happening in the Caribbean now. I did teach between 2007 and 2009 in Tobago on the high school level. Corporal punishment, or should I say punishment, in terms of if it's going to be a spanking or what have you, pretty much was limited to the principal of the school at that point. So when I was in school, the teacher would handle you. At that time, it was more of, okay, the principal will make that choice. But it's really between principals and the parents, right? So another thing I wanted to address was, growing up, anyone who was an adult could correct you.
Yes.
On the road, and you're going home, you're misbehaving, they can correct you right there, because they knew your parent, and then they will also they'll probably stop by and say, hey, Sammy was doing XYZ, blah blah blah, and I had to give him a little something. So, so they'll have that conversation. That do happen again right now. That I didn't see much of that at all.
We're getting a call. Can we see who this is? Hello, good evening.
Yeah, hello, hi, good evening.
Yeah, so who are we speaking with?
This is Joey.
Joey, and where are you calling from, Joey?
Philadelphia, Curtis.
Oh, Joey, Curtis.
I figured that.
Curtis, it's Joey.
Yes, go right ahead. That's my brother. Go ahead.
Oh, that's your brother. Go right ahead, Joey.
Okay. Am I on?
Yes, we are hearing you loud and clear.
On the comment on the corporal punishment. Yeah. Well, I know I don't have all night, so I could just stress on, let's say, I give you a couple. Well, first to begin, like you said, we go up with grandma.
Right.
The woman, she beat you if she dream you doing something. I'm dreaming you cut your card straight. She dream anything and you get licked for what she dreamed. Okay?
Jesus.
Anyhow, instance happened with me in school, and the whole school, they came taking the whole school to the movie theater, and everybody in the primary school turned up on easy going except me. The teacher asked me, why are you not going? I say, the grandmother wouldn't give me the money to go to the theater. She just say, okay, I'll pay for you. I'm glad. I'm 7, 8 years old. I'm glad to hear that. I go to the theater, not knowing this little old lady have me on her car. She then come down by the school around that time to find out if I go to the theater. Somebody should see this one guy I went to school with, ask him, yeah, oh, he went to the movie. Theater over, I'm coming up the street now. That's the school here, the church, and the savannah. And I'm walking up the street. All of a sudden, this little old lady just walked straight up to me and started to unleash. Back in the street. I know you take my money and go to theater. But when I get in the house, that was it. When I get in the house, it's now it starts. Because she's telling me that I stole her money to pay to go theater, and I didn't. So she started beating me and telling me I stole the money. But I didn't steal the money, so I can't say, yes, I did. And the more I say I didn't, it's the more licks. I get so much licks. I'm hanging over there, and my mouth is wide open, and I'm bawling. And she lied. This is not lie, this is butter. Just from going to the theater. Okay? Now, a lot of them are older people back in the day. That what I get to realize as I get older, because she was born 1904. Slavery was abolished 1838. She used to tell us that when she was young, if we think we have it bad now, the punishment she used to get is to kneel down on a grater with a big stone holding up on her head next to the fireplace. And she was born in St. Vincent, actually. So that's how they do it, in St. Vincent. But that's what she used to get. So it's like saying we have another campaign for this and go to get it is good. But what I realized, it does have an effect, a positive effect on the children, the way I'm bringing, especially the old school, especially the islands I'm getting in foreign. Because if it was like in America, almost every parent back home would have been in jail for child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, they don't pay the beat. And it does work because you see a lot of the kids and things today, and the way they behave, have no respect for elders. Like when kids was growing up in our time in the 60s and 70s, and you 15, 16, 17, you smoking a cigarette, you don't think no grown person see you do that. You cap it. You walking on the street and you cussing with your friend, you see some grown person coming out, all of a sudden you shut him out. You ain't cussing, you talking like normal now. They don't have that nowadays. And then 12-year-old will walk up and say, yo, hold on, can I get a cigarette? Well, you wouldn't even think about doing that when you was younger. That's what it is. Certain things they wouldn't even think about doing it.
You're right, because I'm amazed every time. I mean, I've been in this country 31 years, and I'm still shocked by some of the things that I see children do. Still shocked by it.
Yeah. So I got one story now for Mr. Curtis. Okay? Now, when man closed, these old time people, when they close the door at night, you're not inside. You're in a problem. Well, I don't know where he went. He came back late. And it's a wooden house. Knocked the door. Man, yeah, like, who's going to cook this? So yeah? You better go back where you come from. I tell you somewhere. Late in the night, It's like about 11, 12, 13 years old, so probably. And tell her to say that to him. That's for a few minutes. Next thing, he take up a piece of board, a stick or something, and just had to walk around the house and just had to beat the house. Not like a drum, just knocking it off feet. Bam, 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 bam. Nobody can sleep.
Oh, man.
But these kids and them, especially in America, if they get some of that, a lot of them wouldn't be studying it. Because when we was young, we studied to pitch marble, fly kites, play cricket, all this thing. These young generation nowadays study let's go shoot a happened with time. You didn't think about stuff like that. It was play and more play and more play and more play. Okay? So it doesn't work, but within all that, like I have a daughter and I never hit her one time. Not because she didn't do wrong, but my philosophy on that, as far as a female child and me being a father, I wanted you to grow up and later on in life, when you get married or have your boyfriend or whatever, and they do raise your hand at you, you could stop them in the class and let them know, listen, no man ever put your hand on me, not even my own father. That was my philosophy, and I'm not a beater, and we get like small and doing a lie too. But like you say, when they do wrong, like, oh, she thinks you do wrong.
Yeah.
Because she thinks you do wrong, and it's just as bad as if you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the same thing. If you go on down the street and you pass Miss Jane or Mr. Tom and don't say good morning. See, by the time you reach home, it's like Tarzan in the jungle. I really did that. That message reach home and she waiting for you. Or for your big man now. Oh, so you sleep with somebody now and it started just unwail on you.
Right,
but
right.
It was more because it didn't look at it as abuse, because I don't think that in our times we thought of the word abuse. It was just licks. Licks. And then the school
coming to America. Coming to America makes us look at it differently.
What is that?
Coming to America make us look at it on a different level altogether. It's not just sticks anymore. We are told that there's mental, and to some degree it is. There's some mental damage that's being done. There's psychological damage that's being done. The ego, the self-esteem is affected by it. Coming to America changes a lot of things, and even people that don't come to America around the world are affected by American standards. And even in Jamaica, I understand things have changed.
Things have changed a lot.
Know. So America has influenced a lot of places around, and especially Jamaica, because I was called Jamaica Little America. So what you consider just licks at home is now considered here reason for imprisonment of a parent or whomever.
Yeah, so, that's true. Well, Joey, thank you for calling. We're gonna bring Karen in. I know Karen has been wanting to say something. We're gonna bring Karen in right now. Karen, what do you have to say?
Which Karen are you speaking of right now? No, I'm kidding.
Karen.
No, I in doing some of the research on this topic, it was interesting to find laws dating back to 1893. One specific law was Cleary versus Booth, and another one in Barbados, just as recently as 1993, Mayor versus the Attorney General's office, where the laws protected children, or stopped in schools, but allowed parents to continue the same behavior in the home that was being, where children were being traumatized in school. They're no longer being traumatized in the school system, but they're still being allowed to do it at home. I don't agree with a lot of that. You know what I mean?
The problem is, Karen, who decides what trauma is? And that's a serious definition.
Another thing too, yeah.
Because like Sam said, and it stays with me what he said, there are some people, some children who will get licks day and night, and something in their mind says, well, you know what? It's going to last just so long. I'll move out and I'll be gone and it will stop. Mm-hmm. What makes it trauma is if he continues it with his children and he continues to the degree that he causes some kind of physical abuse or mental abuse. So the thing is that who considers it trauma? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying who considers it trauma.
But is there any truth, for me? Is there any truth that this belief that spanking children slows their cognitive development?
Unless you hit them in the head and the brain damage, or they become extremely introverted. No, they should. I wouldn't say that's a natural outcome of corporal punishment, and it causes the delayed development. I wouldn't say that. And then again, you have to remember something, guys. When we're talking about individuals, you can beat one child all day, and there's something in them that rises above that and
Yes.
continues to do well no matter what. And I always come back to Sam when I think of that.
At age
it seems that
15, I
way.
told my mom, talk to me. Not don't hit me again. Don't
Right.
hit me again. Talk to
Right.
me. 15
And
and I
so
was done.
there are young
Done.
people, children who have the attitude, I will not take it. You're not going to hit
Not
me
one more
again.
day.
Yeah.
Not one
And there
more
are
day.
other children who say, you know what, I'm not going to be around this forever. And there are other children who become very stoic. They're very quiet. They do their schoolwork. They stay out of trouble. They try to be the model child because they don't want to be hit. So there are different
Right.
coping mechanisms that people use to get through childhood, whether your parents beat you. One of the things I think, and Sam alluded to it earlier, is that when a parent is correcting you and beating you at the same time, there's a part of the mind that says, just beat me and done the man, stop the talk.
Yeah.
I don't need all the conversation.
Yeah. That's true.
So
I was like that.
and what it shows you is the resilience of the human mind, especially the child's mind. That children have different ways of coping. I think, in all honesty, that one of the problems that we have as Black folks in general, whether we're from the West Indies or wherever, is that we have to become more aware of our emotions. Curtis said it earlier. He never remembered his grandmother kissing him on the cheek. We have to learn to mix the physical chastisement with the tenderness and the touching. And we have to let people know that because I punish you doesn't mean I don't love you.
Right.
We
have
were
to
having
get
a conversation. Sorry.
I want to interject something here because I have a whole heap of children. So I have experimentation.
Are you trying to catch up with the 17?
No. I'm not going
to children.
A heap of them. The first 3, I strike them good. Now all of them are grown now, and when we talk about it with my oldest daughter, she would always say, "What I hated was the intellectual behind whoopings." You would ask me, "Well, are you dumb or are you stupid?" Because I can't be dumb. And she said, "There's no right answer." And she said, "That bothers me to this day." She said, I'm still trying to figure out the answer to that. And then, so she came up with, well, I'll just say I'm sorry. And I would answer, sorry is over on that street with a needle in the arm.
Oh, Lord help us.
She knew she was going to catch the beating. But I wanted her to know why.
Right.
She was going to catch it.
Right.
Not just do it. Now, the others got nothing. All right?
You get
I would
tired.
lift my hand up and they would call the police. So I got the police at my door. I ain't beat his ass yet, but it's on its way.
Gentlemen, ladies, before we run out of time, I'd like for us to address how the lack of corporal punishment, because it was outlawed in many countries throughout the Caribbean, where teachers are no longer allowed to put their hands on children. So we have, like my brother spoke about earlier on, we have children now disrespecting teachers because they know they can no longer put their hands on them. And this has led to a lot of lawlessness within society. We have now where the criminals on the street are the 13, 14, 15-year-olds are the ones who are walking out with guns, shooting people.
But guess what happened?
How has it translated into a lawless society now in the Caribbean?
But guess what happened, Curtis? Along with taking that from the teachers, the parents don't chastise much anymore. And that's a fact. Parents are more interested in being friends with their children.
Yeah.
Now that's my take. I've counseled.
Does that have anything to do with younger mothers now that you end up with that child with a 36-year-old grandmother?
Listen, there's a guy, I think he died in the 1800s or something. His name was Dostoevsky. He was a philosopher in Europe. And he said, when the women of a society loses their way, the society begins to die morally. That's what we're living in. And I'm not picking the women. When I say this, these women get angry with me. Listen, there was a time when women held everybody accountable. We held our children accountable, whether it's with a look or whatever. We held our men accountable. Women don't hold much of anybody accountable anymore.
Not even
themselves. I'm telling you, even themselves. And I'm telling you that part of our downfall is, I'm not joking, I'm serious about it. Part of our downfall is because women have lost their understanding of who they are.
I'd like to comment on that. I'd like to comment on that.
Not to blame women. I'm not saying it's all on women. I'm saying even men, to a large degree, and women get very upset with me about this, men look to women for a certain amount of guidance and direction. Men look to women to say no, and I mean no. We don't do a lot of this these days. Women have become too, and I mean this across the board. Women have become very lax. How do I say this? I've worked in the prison system. I've worked counseling people in their homes. I have worked with women who allow a man to come and go, knowing he has other women. Not in my house. We have to draw lines for people. And when a woman stops drawing lines for men and for their male children, the society is plummeted into hell. That is the way I look at it. And I have a lot of things to prove it. Go ahead.
I'd like to comment on that. I'd like to comment on that, Dr. Judith, because you asked about what's happening on the island of Jamaica earlier. One of the major issues that Jamaica has been dealing with for the last couple of years, I mean, it's becoming rampant, is women are being abused by their male
always have
husband's
been.
Boyfriend.
Always have been.
But more so reported more so now than ever before historically.
Why do you think that is?
So that goes to your statement of women losing their power.
Is it that we lose our power or we give it up?
Well, we give it up, but it's still a loss.
Okay, but listen, when a man, and let's just be real, because I like being just basic. When a man tells you he's going to buy you a dinner, and after he tells he's going to buy you a dinner, and in your head you think, well, if he give me a dinner, I have to give him something. That's how a lot of us live.
From the world, but all right. Here we are.
It happens. It happens. It happens.
I know.
It does
I know.
So there's a constant negotiation going on. And
that's why women are viewed as commodities. The women are viewed as commodities.
And if you let me tell you something, the hardest thing to do with me is to negotiate with me. It's either I like you or I don't like you. I don't care if you give me a box dinner or you give me a plate full of food. It does not matter to me. I must intellectually like you before I can sexually like you. And these are the kind of things I try to train women. Look at yourself and the power that you have, not to dominate men, but to know when to say yes or no.
Know your value.
And women are, what did you say, Karen?
Value.
Yeah.
Know your value.
If you don't know your value, if you leave your value to somebody else to tell you what it is, you will constantly make bad decisions. Now, I also have a problem with men because I think men are this Jamaican guy said to me in Florida, what would you look like having a man all to yourself? I said, what you look like having a woman all to yourself? You understand? You can't talk that to me and get away with it. And when a man says, oh, this is 15 to 200, 15 women to 200 men, well, you go find one of them. Me not sharing you with nobody.
Ladies. All right, come on for the man bashing for a minute.
Hey, listen,
there's no man bashing.
You notice that all of we get quiet and the two of them just there talking.
There's no male bashing here.
Well, we have to listen.
There's no male bashing. The first thing she mentioned was women and their responsibility. The first topic was women and their responsibility and accountability for their own actions. There's no male bashing.
I can't even make my point. The two of them
respectfully ignore you.
Oh gosh. I need gentlemen. I need to.
Listen, Curtis, I know you're in charge. Listen, I'm not to interrupt, but let me say this last thing about what you said about 36-year-old one having these babies, she's a grandmother. Because one of the things, in South Florida, there's a club. I forget the name of the club now. Can't remember the name of the club. It's on Miramar Parkway or something. And I know this male that he says the saddest thing to see is these grown women in their 50s in the club looking at dance, staying there all night. And she's more than likely taking care of our grandchildren, while God knows where her daughter is. Because we started making bargains. We started bargaining. Women started bargaining. And some women started in the last 30 years or so, 20, 30 years, started saying, this is their motto. I have my education, I have my car and my house. I just have sex and let him go. That's what's killing us.
And that's why you have so much single
You're
parents.
talking about Gabby's on Miramar Parkway. I know the place well.
Okay. And women started believing that we could do the same thing that men do sexually and still be okay. We cannot. We are made differently. Our expectations and our needs are different. And we have gone into an area of life that is killing us. Because there are men who can get up, no disrespect, shake it off, and keep going. Some women are trying to get up and they ain't got nothing to shake off.
So are you saying the moral breakdown between this communication or relationship between men and women has affected the rearing of the child and is now contributing to some of the decay that we see in morals in society?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And people are also evolving too.
Gentlemen?
All connected.
People are also evolving. I had a few quick points. Let me just throw them in quickly. In terms of the Caribbean islands outdoing with where the teachers are spanking or outdoing with the corporal punishment on the school level, on the high school level, it wasn't just that one of the disadvantages. Curtis had discussed some of the disadvantages in terms of the disrespect and all the things that spankings or licks would keep at bay. But one of the other things I noticed while I was teaching is that the type of the approach of the teacher had to improve.
Yes.
So you can't hit the person to say sit down or be quiet or what have you. So now you have to step your game up as a teacher.
And Sam, let me just ask you, isn't it part of it too, we have more female teachers than males now? I don't know about in the Caribbean.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that's a part of it.
A lot of female teachers, yes.
Yeah, that's a part of the problem.
Well, we used to have boys school, girls school, and what would happen is that the boys, of course, we know to be slow developers than the girls, and some psychologists are saying the boys' school and girls' school was very, very important because the boys need a certain way to be developed and the girls need a certain way to develop, and then probably from the high school level is where you could bring them together. That went out the window when you had boys and girls together in school, and that but I'm thinking every time something was done, it sort of changed the dynamic of life, and so things evolve. So now we're here talking about the dynamic between men and women,
right?
And what even would happen to the children, and then you have the whole abuse element coming in as to, all right, how do you, from what point to what point is discipline, and then from what point to what point it turns into something that is not considered discipline anymore. So all these factors are just what someone would have to pretty much deal with today. In terms of, all right, do I have a standard? I mean, is there going to be a standard at some point? Or is it going to be a situation where anything goes? So it's an interesting pickle of a conversation to have.
Let me interject this here. One of the things that I've found I live in Georgia, and one of the things I've found here is a phenomenon. It's growing. Is that a lot of the schools now, they're talking about these police officers, they call them all these different titles. these police officers, they're police officers in the schools. And what I recognize here in Georgia is that Georgia is still a very racist state. And what I realize is that the teachers in the school system are predominantly white women to a large degree here. So some years ago, I started looking at it. I started looking at the numbers and I said, how come as the black children, as the black boys increase in the schools with the predominantly white teachers, females, all of a sudden we had to have police officers because white women are afraid of black boys. That's part of the problem here in Georgia. They're afraid of white boys, so they bring these police officers in, and it's really to protect these white women from these black boys. Because what happens here a lot, and I saw it happen, I didn't see it much in New York, but I saw it happen here. I've seen it happen here, is that we have a lot of mostly white areas, neighborhoods and stuff. And as the blacks move in, the dynamics, the whole culture changes.
Yeah.
The whites go north, and I told a white person, I said, you're going to fall off the earth trying to get away from us. So every time they move north, the blacks come in, and the next thing you know, the schools become predominantly black, but the white female teachers stay. And as soon as a black young man says something, oh, and they play this little crap, this little stupid role that they play that they're so afraid. So they bring officers, white female teachers. So that's another problem, and we don't have a lot of black males in the school system. If we do, they're mostly coaches. So there's so much that has changed. And now you're talking about Caribbean, black, male, Caribbean, black, female, coming into this society and trying to negotiate it and trying to balance it out, and it's a tough road. But the problem is that if we don't have some of that stuff, a little whipping here and a little loving here, we're going to get destroyed. And one of the problems that we have as black people, West Indians, we tend to think that we are not like African Americans. Oh, they're black people. What are we? When police officers see us, they don't see Bermuda, they don't see Trinidad.
I say that all the time. They see us as black people, period.
That's it.
But one of the things, it's a tricky situation because Black Americans think that they're different from us in so many ways. I heard Don Lemon went on TV and said there's a difference between being Black American and being black. And I don't necessarily buy that statement. Don Lemon said that on television because I did a show on it. And I was pretty much alarmed when he said that. And I'm there in my mind saying, in what ways are we different except that we were drop off on different places?
We're more alike than we're different.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry?
We are more alike than we're different. We just need to spend some time together. I've been in the African American world a lot, so I know we just need to spend, because after a while you find out we eat just about the same things. We just
exactly. We're well, not to say crazy, but we act the same exact way. Yeah,
you're crazy alike. Yeah,
But
it takes dialogue. It takes time. I personally have a lot of issues with black folks. I have a problem with black people from the islands are here who have an issue with light and dark skin, who perpetuate that thing for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they think it's normal. Okay. I have a problem with people black people lightening their skin.
Okay, that colorism.
Thank you for that.
That's one of our topics.
The colorism issue
coming up.
We are going to. That is something we're visiting very soon. I want to bring this back. I want to bring this back on track. Here. I have lectured at juvenile centers. Let me tell you something about my first experience in New York. When I went into a juvenile center and they told me it's just, kids 13 to 18 years old. Okay, I figured they're in there for some minor little crimes. What I was shocked about when I walked in there, I saw from 13 to 18, these kids committed the same crimes that the adults committed. We everything from murder, rape, arson, car theft, to all the malicious things you can think about, 13 to 18-year-olds. And we had some of them in there who were just waiting to be transferred into the bigger prison because the crimes were so hideous. Once again, we're talking about that breakdown of morals, breakdown of character in society due to that lack of discipline. Because I always say, I have no intentions of going to visit Snake in jail. One of my sons came home. He was in a fight in school, and he threw up his fist and took care of that other guy. I skipped the story. And he was, so everybody calling me boxer now. I said, really? He said, yeah, they call me boxer. I said, do you answer to that? He said, I did nothing. I said, let me tell you something, young man. I named you Salim. And that's the only name you're supposed to answer to. Do not fall into this trap of this boxer, because you know why? Some other guy who believe he can box, or maybe he can, will want to take that title from you one day, and you will have to defend it. You will have to defend a name that you weren't given, a name that you adopted in the street. I am not coming to prison to visit Snake or boxer or anything of the sort. That is not what I named you. And too many of
you're right.
They buy into the hype on the street.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They lose that love, that respect from the parent, or sometimes the parents just stop caring and just leave them out there to the street. And then they end up in prison. I remember a friend of mine on the block. I call him a friend. We call him Big Dread. And he spoke about his son. The mother called him and said, listen, the son, he joined a gang and whatever. And he said, listen, tell him to put on him boxing glove, may I come? And he went by, and I don't know, the son maybe thought he was joking. And he went over, ring the doorbell, and from the minute the door opened,
Oh.
touched him. And this is how he told the story. He said, me hold him, and me fling that. And me pick him up, and me fling that. And the mother in there now is crying and complaining that you're being too physical with him. He said, no, not compared to what the police are going to do to him out there.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you.
But I'm going to do this now. And she said, oh no, the furniture. He said, I will buy it back. And he ransacked that entire living room with his son. And then he left. He let him understand what a man hands felt like, because he was subject to a gang. And he said, you got to come out of the gang. No, when the mother told him, he said, no, the gang leader said, I can't leave. After his father put his hands on him, he went back to that gang leader and said, I'm out. The gang leader said, what? My father said, I had to come out of this. And from that day on, every time he came home from school, he would call the mother and say, Mom, I'm going to the store. She said, well, you don't have to call me. He said, I just wanted to know I'm not in the house anymore.
Yep. Reclaim himself.
This lack of discipline, I'm saying, despite what society says, we, gentlemen, as fathers, you,
right,
ladies, as mothers, need to understand you do not step in the way when that bullet comes into the room and decide, you know what, this is where it stops.
Yeah.
This is where it stops. Because like I said, 5 lashes with a belt far outweighs 5 years in the penitentiary. I am not going to, if you're in a situation where you end up in some kind of predicament and you're in jail, okay, but not for no total lawlessness that you didn't learn within my home. Despite what society says, in terms of that corporal punishment, I will execute it, because I am not coming to visit you in jail under any alias that I didn't give you.
Right.
So this is why I want to get back on track in terms of this thing has broken down society. I look in Trinidad right now. They have abolished this death penalty. The law of the land when I was growing up says break the neck. That was the law. Break the neck. We had people who murdered people and they hung them. They abolished that. And now you have children growing up. They fall into these video games, looking at Grand Theft Auto and all of these other things. And somehow they fall into that light and thinking, well, you have an extra life. As in the video game, or you crash the car and you die, you get an extra life. You have 10 lives lined up at the top of the screen. And they live in society believing they have these extra lives, not understanding how hot a gunshot is.
Right.
Is it possible we can do a part 2 of this? Because this is a very interesting topic. Yeah, we need a part 2 of this, because I have something I need to contribute to. So, but I'll save it for the next time. I think we've had a very interesting and intellectual conversation, and I really like the energy. And we need to do a part 2 like next week.
There has to be a part 2, because this other part of the conversation has to be addressed. in terms
Yes.
of
But part
children
I agree.
part
in
two,
prison.
excuse me, part two should include the very population that we are talking about.
Yeah.
They need
Yes.
to
I
be
was
present
just
as well.
thinking, I was
Yes.
just thinking about, because listen, after a while, it's just intellectualization. We have to in discussing this stuff, find some way to say, well, what is the answer?
Yes, the solution to
Because
all of this.
otherwise, we
Solutions,
just
yes.
spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
Chris, I agree with everything that you're saying, but I think basically one of the problems that we have to face is that we are not dealing with family anymore. We're dealing with individuals raising children. Some come, some go. Children are staying with auntie and uncle. There's such a breakup of family as we know it.
But
And
we
whether
also
people
need to
like
take
it
in
or not.
we also need to take in consideration too that and if my memory serves me correctly, I think this is by law that we don't necessarily belong. I mean, children don't necessarily belong to their parents. It belong to the state. There's like state property of the.
Well, the way we have allowed it.
Yes.
We have
Yeah.
allowed it to come to this place. Because some parents, my son did something here in Georgia some years ago. He might have been 4 years old, 3, whatever it was. And I whipped his behind. He went to school and apparently showed it or allowed her to see the mark.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got home later on that evening, a cop came to the door. And I was like, oh, Lord, you shouldn't let this happen. This is madness. And when the cop talked to me and everything, and he said, after the cop said to me, listen, next time, hit him on his bottom. Hit him on the bottom. We won't show up that easily. Well, I had to take him to counseling. I'm talking to this therapist. Now, I'm a therapist. I don't have a problem talking with a therapist, but when you talk to me about my home, my business, I'll get a little defensive. And she's talking to me while they have my son outside in a little box playing with toys. And I look out at him, I say, you look at blouse and skirts. That's how I felt. And here this little Spanish girl to me. Oh, so explain to me what happened. So I told her what happened. After a while, she started turning on me. Now she says to him, Taryn, do you want to go home? So I'm going to say, take him with you. Because me not play with him. And I hear him. No, I want to play some more. I said, when you get home, child.
You can't
do that to me and get away with it.
I know.
But luckily, it didn't become a legal thing against me. But
Right.
every once in a while, it come to mind. I say, you remember what you did? I say, you're lucky you're living.
And we also have to address the fact that they're medicating these children unnecessarily.
That's a good one.
Wow.
They wanted to put them on Ritalin.
Yeah, they're putting them on
And I
medication
told them, I said,
that
let me tell
causing
you
more
something.
problem than anything else.
I
child
will,
that I've known that is now an adult who started with Ritalin
yes.
has some sort of substance abuse problem.
Yes, sir.
as
It's
an
a
adult.
listen.
You can't give
both of
somebody
them.
liquid cocaine
Yep.
and then say, well, you don't need it anymore. You should be fine now. You're
Yeah.
going to pick something up.
All right, everyone. Once again, thank you guys. This is a good conversation, and we need to continue it next week. I want to thank you, Doctor, for coming on again. And I
love sharing with you guys.
and I really, really love having you here because it opens up my mind, and I guess all of us as well.
Mine too.
And,
Yes, sir.
Mark, thank you for joining the conversation. Joey, thank you for calling in. And we're going to wrap it up now. Guys, it was great. Have a great evening. You were all
Wait. How
wonderful.
come you address Judith, you address Mark? You have 3 other people sitting on here. You ain't thanking me? you thank Judith, you thank Mark. You ain't thanking the rest of people.
Because they're our special guests. You're a regular guest.
We're not special.
You pick up me every week,
to
Doc.
get out of it.
Every week you pick up me.
That's Curtis.
I want to feel special too. Even though
You always make yourself feel special.
I know. All right,
God bless
everyone.
you
Have a
all.
good night. Thanks.
Take
Thank
Have
you
a
care.
again.
blessed one. Have a
You
blessed one.
too.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hi, Mark.
All right.
Kurt, go to your bed. Oh, Lord.